Hello, my name is Kingjakyl, and today is going to be the first of a few segments of the Round Table. And today I am joined by my two good friends, Jabba and Yeetus. Today we're going to talk about whether or not crossplay is a good thing, both for casual and competitive. Most of our arguments is mainly going to stick on the competitive side. So, without further ado, let's get right on into it.
Competitive gaming in terms of the quality of the gameplay and the fair fight, because depending on which platform you're using, would change what controls you're what type of controller setup you use, which can affect your gameplay. Like some controllers are better set up like for Sony PlayStation, or better set up for like racing and arcade games, and side scrollers, whereas the Xbox controller is better set up for shooters, and and then when you've got the PC that can run any of them, it creates an uneven ground for any platform at that point, depending on what game you're playing. Now, as for the making multiplayer competitive games cross-platform, I'm for it surely, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to play hardly any of the online multiplayer games I enjoy with any of my friends. So there's pros and cons.
I guess that is true. However, when it comes to competitive, I
Yeah,
have to say that cross-platform is something that made a very big imbalance when it comes to gaming, because there are a lot of
right.
advantages and disadvantages that each individual platform has. For example, consoles not in general. Um, Standard is that consoles have higher aim assist, and usually when it comes and it's like when you cross over something, your looking starts to slow. That helps with
Lag.
aiming a lot. No,
I,
not
I, I
lag.
think what you're looking for is
It's something or other friction. I can't remember the
I,
name
I I
right now.
think it's reticle friction or aim friction is the
Yeah, something like that. It's the term like that. Anyway,
I for any game devs that are watching this after
Yes.
post, please tell us what the actual phrasing is down below in case we got it wrong. Here's where I stand on the matter, and this is exactly why I feel it should go back to the way it used to be, to where cross-platform, while for the social aspect, I fucking love it because it allows you to play with any of your friends at any time at any given point. But like you both have said, it's a different ball game when it comes to the competitive spectrum. Because, for instance, to kind of hit back off of what Jabba was talking about, to where keyboard and mouse has certain advantages and disadvantages, controller has certain advantages and disadvantages.
And
Let's
the
let let
entire control.
let's just go to the aspect of shooters, right, real quick. Keyboard and mouse is objectively better because you have more than one axis of rotation to fine tune and adjust your aim. Flicks are made easier, pinpoint accuracy is easier, and with enough practice and skill on the keyboard and mouse, I guarantee you will dominate just about any lobby. The problem is there are a few exceptions to that, and I'm not going to name game titles, but those who know what game titles I'm speaking of, you
Mm-hmm.
already know. But generally
Mm-hmm.
speaking, the one complaint that a lot of keyboard and mouse users get is when they go up against controller players, because controller players have one advantage, but it's kind of a crutch. But it's a necessary crutch in order for the controller to feel good in the hands. And it's aim assist and reticle friction. And in some titles, you get bullet magnetism on top of that. And it's all so that the person using a controller feels like they're in control. It feels less clunky, and it feels more smooth and fluid. And it is the only way for a controller player to keep up with a keyboard and mouse player, because you need those crutches to keep up with a keyboard and mouse. And a lot of keyboard and mouse players will sit there and stick up in arms and go, well, it's bullshit. I shouldn't have to play against a controller because they had fucking aim assist. Unfortunately, even in the competitive setting, it is far too competitively viable. And the way I believe, and I know there are some events that do this, but I believe competitive should not be cross-platform and should be input based. And what I mean by that is if you are going to compete for Halo championships, there needs to be a separate category for PC players and a separate category for console players. There needs to be. And that is for the fairness of the competition, flat out, because of those inherent advantages I was talking about. In a 4v4 match, controller outright dominates keyboard and mouse. And I'm a controller user. I'm a controller user. I love controller because it feels comfortable in the hand. If I'm going to compete in PC versus PC versus PC, I think I should compete with keyboard and mouse to keep it fair. All fair is fair. If I'm playing in console v console, it should be controllers only, all fairness being fair. The problem that we have in today's gaming is when the two cross.
Yeah, as you were saying, when it comes to, especially in cross-platform, when it comes to like 3v3s in most games, the most comfortable, like when you're at a lower player count, the most comfortable thing to use is usually mouse and keyboard because you have access to look in most directions. You can at very, very quickly, you can cover a lot of angles. There's a lot of benefit to it. But the thing is that the moment you come across a mouse and keyboard player, the advantages become apparent, especially when you're going in more than one against one scenarios, where the controller player will be at a significant disadvantage due to the fact that they do not have the ability to turn quickly. Movement isn't as it's smoother, but it's not as
fluid.
Not fluid isn't the right word. The word I'm looking for is robust. That's a better word. Because with mouse and keyboard, you go left, you go right, you go back, and you go forward. There's no real other direction that you can go, which means you have the ability to make very, very, very quick adjustments, and especially in a high skill competitive environment, those fractions of seconds can be the difference between you living and dying in a competition. Because that same amount of time is the difference between one bullet and two bullets.
And here's where I differ on the topic. So I personally believe cross-platform competitive, while it is a whole another monster, I think it's important to have it because it promotes what most of these what most of these multiplayer cross-platform competitive modes are for, which is to promote adapting and overcoming new challenges. While let's say you've got someone with an Xbox controller and someone with mouse and keyboard, the controller is going to have a disadvantage in, say, like you said, a 3v3. It does not have the optimized and robust viewing angles or speed. That can be adjusted if the controller player adopts a different play style. So whereas PC players are more quick to snap and turn, I believe controller players could be more, slow as smooth and smooth as fast. I think that play style, when it comes to, say, clearing a room or checking different corners when you're going around in, say, an arena shooter or just a regular FPS game, I think that style is always dominated in terms when used by a controller player over the PC. Obviously, PC players have an advantage with the keyboard and mouse when it comes to first-person shooters because of the optimized look and movement. That just leaves more to overcome and more to adapt to. And I think that was the whole point of video games, was to have fun and learn to overcome and adapt with your friends. You know, if you're doing like a competition like for money and for world rank or whatever, or if you're doing it for the Guinness Book World Records or whatever, yeah, make it fair. Make it console v console and PC v PC. But if it's in the game itself that happens to be cross-platform anyway, leave it competitive cross-platform, because I mean, one, they're probably going to charge a whole bunch more if they were to change it due to all the extra work they do. But then again, that's not saying much considering most game development companies out there haven't released a finished product that hasn't crashed on release on time in over a decade and a half.
Well, you made it this far into the video. Don't forget to subscribe and please leave a like, as it allows me to stay on the platform and keep making content for you guys. Where I stand on this personally, again, I'm going to also hit back to my point, and kind of to refine some of the points that Yeetus was kind of making, and I think he kind of fumbled a little bit here and there.
I definitely fumbled.
A lot of where I come from on this, when it comes to the cross-platform, especially on the competitive level, is keyboard, like I said, on its own merits, is just simply superior. As you do have the snappier adjustment, you do have a much more robust control surface system and everything. But what throws the wrench into it is the crutches that are provided to controller players, in that of aim assist. Because aim assist, to some, is seen as a great equalizer, and to others, is cheap. Simply because you could be winning an engagement from the perspective of somebody using keyboard and mouse, right? All a controller user has to do is stay tracked close enough to make the hits count. They don't have to be as precise. They don't have to be as accurate. So long as you are aiming just close enough for the bullet magnetism to take over, you don't have to be as precise, which skews a lot of engagements, especially in the 1v1, which is why I personally believe, especially if you're going to be doing competitive, especially for money, that it needs to be input based and system based. In PC versus PC, competition venues typically have pre-built PCs that are made to handle that specific game and that specific game only. Aside from maybe the controls that are being used, where I believe the players are oftentimes allowed or permitted to bring keyboards and mice from home or personal controllers from home, typically you're running into the whole fact of like everybody's got the same equipment. There are some times in competitive to where I've seen players go to a PC match, right? And I've seen them bring controllers. And I've seen people go to competitive matches for like Xbox and retrofit a keyboard and mouse for that advantage. I've seen it both ways. Usually, the odd man out tends to dominate, and almost unfairly, it seems, because the situation winds up always feeling cheap, and it always winds up feeling like a cop out.
Well, I believe that, yes, keyboard and mouse, in terms of viewing speed and movement speed and being able to adjust your aim with more, you're able to do so quicker and more accurately. I think aim assist with controllers needs adjustment, but I do not think of it as a cheat. I think of it as, if you've got a PC player that's got these mouse and keyboard that's got the ability to have a quicker movement and aim speed based on the input controls they have accessible to them, versus a controller player who is limited based on the system that they purchased, at which point that aim assist is kind of the only thing that makes the game fair. Because as a PlayStation player for most of my life, I can say I've fought PC players with a PlayStation controller. It's never been easy because of their movement and turning speed. Keyboard and mouse has allowed them to strafe so much easier and more sporadically. Even with a close bead, that bullet magnetism is next to naught. And I can verify that with games such as Call of Duty, Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, Gears of War, Battlefield, Warzone. When I've gone up against PC players, I have almost always found myself at a disadvantage. And mind you, I'm a casual player. When it comes to competitive, and I've been in a few competitive matches, such as Call of Duty, Black Ops 2, and 3, and I will say this. There were many, many times I got my butt kicked. And there was a time I was ranked back in the day, and there's no way that controller players can ever compete with mouse and keyboard in a competitive environment because of that. And that is where aim assist comes in, where it at least tries to level the playing field.
The one thing that I can mention on this as well, um, again, I'm not saying that controller use and the benefits that come with it or the crutches that come with it are a
I don't
bad
see
thing.
the
What I'm saying is it's a necessary thing in order to balance the tables. The problem is, and it's usually from the whiny keyboard users.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm
the
gonna
it,
verify that is true.
it's the whiny keyboard users that are the ones that complain the most about, well, if he didn't have aim assist, or this motherfucker is using controllers, like blase, 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 like motherfucker, because take it from their perspective, right? If you look back at a kill cam, a keyboard and mouse user, you can easily tell, oh, they tracked me here, They flicked to me over here. It was a very clear and simple. They saw me, they flicked, they got a kill. With a controller user, again, take this with a grain of salt. You can typically see the moment where the aim assist starts to take over. And it's almost like the computer itself is taking over from the player. And it to them, the keyboard player thinks it's a cheat. Or at least feels that it was a cheap death. So, and mind you, I'm coming at it from the perspective of being a controller player. I have an Xbox Pro controller that I play with consistently because it is comfortable and because the aim assist is a necessary evil that I will commit in order to keep a competitive edge. But that's also because I have gotten really good with controller. And it's not to say that I can't perform with keyboard and mouse, but it's not the same feel for me.
Whereas I, a MNK player, am very uncomfortable playing with controller. There are always these contrasts. It's super interesting with these debates, in my opinion, because like you always get these contrasting points, these disagreements, and everything, and every reason as to why. I'm genuinely curious as to like. I would be genuinely curious to ask what like pro players and their opinions would be.
I guarantee you, you talk to most pro players, they're going to give you a variety of responses, all varying from I don't think it's necessary to why the fuck did you even ask that question? That's a stupid question to ask. Obviously, there needs to be a separate category for each.
Yeah, sure, but
And I also
it
it
still
depends
makes
on
me
the
curious to
background.
ask.
I also think it depends on the background of how each individual started gaming. In like I know in Jackal's case, I'm fairly certain he started playing with the PC out the gate. Am I
Actually,
am I incorrect in that assumption, or was it the Xbox?
no, actually, I grew up on a PlayStation, just like you.
Okay, because I grew up with
I
the
didn't get
PlayStation 1.
a PC until way later.
I
And
grew up with controller. It's what's comfortable. If I was forced to use keyboard and mouse, I'd be reluctant. I'd still try. It would it'd be like trying to take grades kindergarten through 12 all over again, and I'd hate every second of it.
like I have gotten into verbal arguments with friends in the past, like, why the fuck won't you use keyboard and mouse? You actually have a fucking computer. Why not? It's like, I'm comfortable with controller. I've been playing with controller for years. I see no need to change. The main takeaway is, even though the keyboard is at a great advantage,
There's still a
it's
compromise.
there still has to be compromises made in order for
Yeah.
the accessibility to be there, because in all fucking reality, right? Without the crutch of aim assist and bullet magnetism and everything surrounding the advantages, quote unquote, that is given to a controller to even the playing field. Because think of it like this: with a keyboard and mouse, a mouse, you have the full rotation and movement of your wrist, you have the full rotation and movement of your elbow, and the full rotation and movement of your shoulder, which allows for far greater control and allows for far greater motor control. With a controller, unless you're fucking weird, um, you only have one axis of rotation, and that is your thumb.
Actually, that
Obviously, you've never seen a PlayStation player with God of War 1. Or 2 in the opening
I'm
scene.
saying typically.
That
Okay?
actually reminded me of something. There's this I see people using they use not weapons, what am I talking about? They use controllers with their index and thumb moving around the things for very precise movement.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's how we used to do it back in the day.
I think that method is called claw.
Yeah, like the old arcade system, the old arcade boxes. Yeah, that's how we did it then.
But yes, that is a legitimate method. But the other thing is, too, not everybody plays like that. And some people would find that rather uncomfortable.
Oh, that's fair.
But on the flip of that, because you only have one axis of movement and one axis of input, and that is your thumbstick, which only has so much range of motion. So, in order to be equally as accurate and to be equally as precise, you have to have the advantage of aim assist. You have to have the advantage of bullet magnetism. You have to add the advantage of reticle friction. You need to have all that in order to even have an inkling of a chance to compete against a keyboard and mouse. And
See,
and like what Jabba had said earlier, most of the time you're going to get your ass kicked going up against a keyboard.
mm-hmm.
But it gives you a much more even playing field because it allows you to keep up with them to an extent. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Guy watching on your phone, on your computer, on your TV. Maybe it's on a tablet. Or maybe you're watching on your friend's phone because they're showing you an awesome video. Yeah, you. Please subscribe, man. Quit missing out on all my content. Also, you might want to check out this video down here in the corner. You might enjoy it too. And as always, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.